Hey everyone, we're going to kick things off on this channel with a series called GM Basics, where I give advice to aspiring new game masters on how they can level up their game as their players level up their characters. For the first video in this series, we're going to touch on a topic that I think is probably one of the most important and fundamental concepts a game master needs to understand, and that's player agency. But what is player agency? I think player agency is best described with three primary components. First, the player is given the power to make decisions on behalf of their characters. Second, those decisions they make are both meaningful and have lasting consequences on the world for which the characters inhabit. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, the player has all the information they need to make sure that they know what the consequences of the decisions are going to be before they make them. Let's take a look at an example to make this a little more clear. At one point I was playing a 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons game with a group of friends, and at one point our characters were transported to the Feywild. Through a series of unfortunate events, my character ended up making a deal with a member of the Fey Court. Now, if you're familiar at all with Dungeons & Dragons lore, particularly that of Forgotten Realms, you'll probably be crawling in your skin right now, because in D&D lore, the Fey take deals very seriously. And if you make one, you better have every intent of completing your end of the bargain, or your life is literally on the line. But my character did have every intention of upholding his end of the bargain. However, through a series of bad rolls and some questionable decisions on behalf of the other players, they failed at that task. As a consequence of not being able to complete my end of the bargain, Chris, the GM at the time, and still to this day a very good friend of mine, decided that my character, who I believe was a half-elf or human at the time, I don't really recall, would all of a sudden be transformed magically into a Dragonborn. Permanently. And on top of that, all of my stats would be changed to that of a Dragonborn as well. That sucked. I had no idea such a consequence was even on the table when I made that deal with the Fey Lord. If I did, I probably wouldn't have made it in the first place, because I don't even like Dragonborns. But Chris wasn't trying to be a jackass. I knew that. He was trying to create an exciting story beat for his players, something all GMs should aspire to do, mind you, and something I'll probably make a video on in the future. But in doing so, he failed to remember the #1 job of a game master, and that's to make sure that all the players at the table, including themselves, are having fun. And stealing a player's agency is never fun. Now, I know that was a rather extreme example, and honestly, it's not something you see come up in games very often in my experience. But what I do see fairly often is GMs taking more subtle ways of stealing their player's agency. For example, a GM telling their player that they can't do something because their character wouldn't do that, like a paladin stealing off the shelf of a magic store. But even if there is some truth to that, there's usually better ways of handling a situation than flat out telling your players no. In fact, one of the most useful tricks I've learned over my years as a game master is to try not to say no, but instead say yes, but. In the example of the sneaky paladin, let them take the potion, but maybe it triggers an alignment shift and NPCs around town treat them less than favorably for the foreseeable future. Or maybe they fail the roll and the magic shop owner realizes what they're doing and ends up telling their order that one of their members is acting pretty shifty. Perhaps their god forsakes them until they undertake a quest to redeem themselves. There's all kinds of ways you can deal with uncharacter-like acts without flat out telling the character no. Remember, at the end of the day, you're playing a role-playing game, and making meaningful, impactful decisions and choices is core to the very genre. Telling a player they can't make a choice is tantamount to telling them they can't play the game they signed up for to play in the first place. So remember, next time you're GMing a game, try to be more sensitive to your players' decisions and choices. Instead of telling them no, try to come up with ways to make their decisions work in the context of your game world. After all, that's way more fun, right? Don't forget, if you like what you saw today, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. If you want to be notified next time a video is uploaded, make sure to click the little belly icon next to it as well. Until next time, happy gaming!